ain't an option, so I'd be cautious. I hope that you're watching. Don't try to stop this, work until I'm nauseous. Cause I will not quit, no, because I want this. Don't try to stop me, failure ain't an option, so I'd be cautious. I hope that you're watching. Don't try to stop this, work until I'm nauseous. Cause I will not quit, no, because I want this. Don't try to stop me now.
Hi, welcome back to the Team Turner YouTube channel. Today, I'm going to introduce my 92 Saab 900. This is a real Saab story, I guess, if you will. This is a car that I picked up for $300 probably 4 or 5 years ago, and it was had a little bit of front end damage. It was covered in moss and mold. It was absolutely disgusting. I can attest. I've never bought a car that was this ugly on the outside before. I bought it for $300. It was a parts car for my '86 Turbo. I just wanted to get some parts off of it, maybe some good sheet metal. You know, for $300, you can't really pass up a good parts car. What I didn't realize when I started winching it up onto my trailer, I could look down the frame rails and see the underside of the car when it was coming up on the trailer, and it was perfect. All the black undercoating was there. There was no rust anywhere, not even a bubble anywhere on this car. I remember loading it up as fast as I could and getting out of there before the guy changed his mind. But this car was originally a Pacific Northwest car in Oregon and Northern California. Lived most of its life out there until it came to Northern Indiana and Southern Michigan area in about 2013. Looks like it was on the road for maybe a year or two, and then the transmission died. It got parked and was never driven. It sat underneath some tree or swamp or something for probably about 5 years, and got really disgusting on the outside, but it never started to rust or anything. So the guy was getting rid of it. I scooped it up, brought it home, realized pretty quick that this was not a parts car. I could not let this thing go to waste. So I've started putting it back together. It took a couple years, went through a lot of stuff personally during that time, but I finally got it together, got it running. I rebuilt the engine, I sourced a new transmission, I used one, but a good transmission. Rebuilt the suspension, put some lowering springs on it. In the midst of that, I did pick up an actual parts car, a 1985 SPG, which was way too far gone to fix. It was extremely rusty. I still have that car. Pick parts off of it occasionally. Maybe I'll turn it into something down the road. But I did buy that car as the parts car for everything I needed for the two I have now. But what I did is I stole the SPG body kit off the sides of the SPG parts car, put it on here. So now, you know, obviously the front and rear bumpers are a little bit different between the base model and the SPG, but it does look pretty close. If you don't know exactly what you're looking for, you'll think it's an SPG. I got a fiberglass replica whale tail for the rear. Stole the louvers off my '86 temporarily. They'll probably go back on the '86 once that car's done, but that's a big project down the road. So for now, it's got SPG sides, it's got a whale tail, and it's got louvers. I think the outside of the car is pretty well dialed in. I'd love to get some better headlights, a better grille, you know, a handful of little things, but I think it's a good driver. I never intended for it to be perfect. I just want to have something really nice to drive. It gets decent mileage, etc. So, yeah, it's been running good for about 2 years now. I did have a fuel pump die, which is, I guess, pretty normal for a car that's set for that long. But I replaced that, and it's been running well ever since. Never had really too much of an issue with it. But since I have been driving it somewhat regular in the summer for the last 2 years, there's just a handful of issues, a handful of little things that have popped up that I need to get taken care of, and what better time than during the winter while it's in storage to go ahead and tackle these things. I've got an alternator that has a really noisy bearing. I'm going to handle that. I've got a steering U-joint that binds a little bit. It just has a little stiff spot in the steering, so probably going to take care of that. Got an exhaust leak. Got a couple little electronic issues with the door locks, and a couple other just little piddly things, dash lights, etc. So I'm going to tackle all that stuff, as well as I'm going to go through the dash, make heads or tails of the wiring. There was no radio in it, and some of the harness was cut, so I'm going to go ahead and install a radio. I've got a real nice radio for it, wiring for a radar detector, just all the basic stuff I would want to have if I'm going to put some miles on this car and drive it in the coming months and coming years. The only couple of things that I'm on the fence about is it is a base model, so it does not have cruise control currently. I would love cruise control. I'm pretty analog when it comes to the cars. I really do like a basic car that doesn't have a bunch of stuff on it. But if I'm going to be driving this car on some long trips, I would love to have cruise control, or else I will go to jail. So that would be nice. I know there's ways to retrofit that system. I know Saab actually sold a kit for it decades ago to add it. So I don't know. We'll see if I can gather up some parts and make that happen. And then the other thing is air conditioning. It doesn't have it. I've had several Saab 900s. I mean, it has it. It just doesn't work. I've had several Saab 900s that none of them ever worked. So it's not a real big deal to me. It's got wing windows in the back. It's actually pretty well designed when it comes to airflow. So probably just going to remove the rest of the AC parts and make it easier to work on. But other than that, I'm going to give it some creature comforts and make it just a more solid vehicle for daily use. So.
All right, so as you can see on the inside, it's in decent shape. I've got this pad on the dash because it's cracked, and pretty typical with these cars. This one, being a driver, like I said, I'm not going to worry about it too much. I did redo the stock seats with sheepskin covers. Perfect late 80s, early 90s, kind of mood in here now. I also put in the steering wheel, which came from an 85. Came from the SPG, actually. Replaced the airbag steering wheel that was in here before. The airbag light was on, and that steering wheel was pretty gummy and messed up, so I just went ahead and changed it out. It is possible to just change the wheel out without changing the whole column, contrary to popular belief. The only thing you lose is actually the horns. The horn wiring won't work, but oh well. Everything else is here. It's complete. This gauge pod is actually just sitting in here. We're going to take that out and put the radio up here. If it was a performance car, I was thinking about, the gauges being up here would be a nicer touch, being right by the cluster. But I think they can go down here. On a higher end model, you'd have your radio up here, usually an old Clarion. And then they'd actually have a factory equalizer that would go down here. My 86 had that. It's a pretty cool setup, but it's getting hard to get parts and get that to work. So I'm just going to put, I've got a really nice Jensen stereo that's going to go up here. And I think I'm going to put gauges and switches and stuff down here. Either way, we'll get to that. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to start taking this dash panel out. It's not super difficult, but I'm just going to start pulling it apart and see what I can get to behind it. I'm probably going to pull the console out and do some wiring. I'm going to prep for the stereo, radar detector wiring, make sure all the dash lights work. Maybe upgrade them to LEDs. We'll see. I'm just going to go through and see what I can find.
So there's supposed to be screws in these. The defroster vents come up through here, one on each side. I've noticed the driver's side one is actually missing. Also the speaker on the driver's side is missing. This one has a speaker. It looks to be an old Alpine, but the wiring is broke on it, and it's just a mess. I'm going to replace all this stuff.
plug this switch back in for the dome lights just so I can make sure everything's working. It is nice to make sure that everything works like it's supposed to. Even if you have the pieces out, keep the switches plugged in. That way you can still roll the windows up and down, or, you know, there's ways. There's ways to get done what you need to get done without having to put everything back together. So yeah, there you go. Make sure when I pull every part out, if there's a light on it, I want to make sure it works. That way I can make a note of it later on, whether or not I need to replace it. I'm also going to show you, this is an early wheel from a 85. It is different from the airbag cars, which this technically is. It's a 92. This wheel's from a 85, and I'm going to show you right here, there's a tab. Now this tab is what sticks out and hits the turn signal cancel. And that's a problem when you will put these on the newer cars. The turn signal cancel does not work. What all I've done here is I drilled a little hole in that tab. You can see I drilled a little hole in the tab, put a zip tie around it, and clipped it off. Now the head of that zip tie sticks out the perfect amount to hit that cancel on the turn signal. That's all the harder it is. Everybody says it's a big deal and it doesn't work and it's a big pain in the butt. You got to switch the whole column. That's not true. That's all you got to do. panel is out finally. I was caught up on a couple little things, but you know, most of what we have here at the bottom, this is all climate control, climate control. That is the vacuum manifold for the climate control. This rod here controls the hot cold. Literally just goes right to the heater valve. All this stuff is climate control. Now I'm going to check these bulbs and everything, make sure they're good. But that is not what I'm mostly worried about here. What I am dealing with is the radio. So I've got an antenna wire, and I have all of this nonsense here, which God knows what it goes to. I have half a mind to remove a good lot of it, or just not use it and start over. I'm going to have to pin out wires and see if there's any of them that are actually live, meaning they have power to them. I'm not holding my breath, honestly. And I'm going to check, obviously check fuses and everything, make sure that, you know, see if the factory wiring is usable. If so, great. If not, we're going to have to start over. Alright, so the first thing I did, I didn't do it on camera, but I would check all of these wires for power when the key is off. So right now I'm going to turn the key on to ignition and see if I have power at any of these wires, which it does not appear that I do. These look like speaker wires. Okay, everything in that radio harness is dead. So what I'm going to do is real quick go out under the hood and see if there's a fuse blown, or if there's actually some issue with, you know, the wiring altogether. It wouldn't break my heart to just cut all this off and start over. Yeah, let's go open the hood. So this is some of the fun stuff I was talking about, Saab hiding bolts. So this lower kick panel, I need to get that out just to get myself some access up underneath the dashboard. Now there's a bolt right here that I have removed already. The rest of them, there's only two more, are out here. I don't know if you can see the one, not the stud, but the one hiding behind that black drain tube there. Yep, that's the other bolt to get the dash out. Same on the other side. This one I think is a little, yeah, there you go. Behind the drain tube there. You can see it? That's the other bolt. Right behind like the head of that zip tie. Yep, you got to get those out to get the bottom dash panel out. I love Saabs. So as a bonus, while I'm in here, the central locking has been giving me problems. It kind of works intermittently. Well, this box here is the controller for it. Alright, there we go. That is the central locking module. So I need to have that taken over to my dad's. He's going to touch up the solder joints on it and hopefully fix whatever issues we're having. Alright, so this is the circuit board from the central locking unit that I pulled out from under the dash. It's pretty simple, really, not much to it. And I believe that might be the culprit right there. You can see it right there. I believe that's a weak solder joint. Looks like maybe it got hot and melted some of the coating on the board. I don't know for sure. I'm not really huge into electronics, but seems like that could be the issue. The locks would sometimes work, sometimes they wouldn't, kind of dependent on temperature and humidity and stuff. So hopefully that's a simple fix, and you know, I like simple free fixes. All right. So back in the wiring for the Saab, I have determined this is all there is for the stereo that is still in the car. There were other wires in that like bundle that were just extra wires and were not used. They were speaker wires that were not used. So what I've determined now, my test light, gray is constant power. Okay, if I turn the ignition on, red is ignition power. And here I can show you. There, red is on. Turn the ignition off. Boom. Okay. Then also what I have determined is that white here is for the dash lights, and I can tell that by putting power to it. If I put power from the gray, which is always live, to the white, dash lights come on. So that's the signal from the dash lights to tell the radio to dim, probably. And then the last thing I've determined, which is pretty cool because it's kind of a rare thing that it still works, is this green wire. If I put power to that, that's the power antenna. So watch when I stick these two together. Boom. Now obviously I need to grease that up, but it works. So I'm going to go with these 4 wires. I'll have to come up with a ground and then do all the speaker wiring from scratch, but that's fine. We can do that. Alright, so what I'm going to do now, I've got the dash panel here. This is the radio I'm going to go with. It's a Jensen JHD 1635BT. It's actually designed for like heavy duty equipment and stuff. Designed to be able to be taken in and out. It doesn't actually use a constant power. It only uses switched power, like ignition power. But it has a memory, so it won't lose your settings, I guess. But the biggest thing is it's got this really cool retro looking face, but it's got a bunch of modern features in it. So I think it'll look great in this car. It's got Bluetooth and everything else I could want, but it's going to fit right in. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take the cage, the mounting cage, basically just stick it right in the hole. I know that this dashboard isn't the best, but this is also, you know, it's a $300 car. It is what it is. So I'm going to put it in here, and then I'm going to pop the tabs, little screwdriver. Basically just whichever ones, you know, line up and fit the best, make it fit snug. That's the ones you want to bend up. Okay, so that's the top, and then on the bottom side, same thing. Okay, now it's in. Okay, so another issue I'm going to tackle, here's the gauge cluster from Saab. It's actually in really good condition, even the clock works. The only thing is somebody had put electrical tape here and here to block off, I'm assuming this is the shift light. I don't know what was over here, but they didn't want to see it. So they put electrical tape on there. I peeled it off when I first got the car, but it is actually etched, the adhesive is etched into the plastic. I've tried Goo Gone, Plastex, etc., trying to get rid of that, and it will not go away. So I have, this is a spare cluster I got out of my parts car. It's a turbo cluster. It's in decent shape, but it's not as nice. It's actually a spare. I don't need it for anything. So I'm going to see if I can't pop this plastic lens off of this one and switch it over to my cluster for this car to get rid of those tape marks. Okay, well, after a little bit of finagling and only cutting myself one time, I did manage to get the new, better condition glass. It's still not perfect. I probably should have Plastexed it or something, but it's way better than it was. There's no scuff marks, tape marks, adhesive, etc. on it. So, got the glass transferred over, and time to put the cluster back in the car. All right, got the better, new and improved cluster in the car. Looks like everything is cool with it. Boom. I don't know if you can see it. This cluster has got no backlighting. It is all front lighted. But it works now, so yay. One of the things that I want to do on the Saab is add a horn button back in. When I backdated the steering wheel, I did not have the ability to retain the horn. But the wires are still there, and if you connect them together, it'll honk. So I have a real simple, just a momentary push button switch. And I noticed on the back of this dashboard, there's actually a spot right here. So it's going to be right about here next to the radio, where it looks like there's already a hole. I'm going to go ahead and drill that out, put this switch in there, and get it wired so that I can have a horn button. Now it's not going to be on the steering wheel, but at least it's going to work, which is nice to have. One more. There. All right, so it may look a little bit overwhelming, but right now I've just about got all the wiring done in the dash of this thing. So here's what I did. On the left side, the headlight, heated, that's heated seats, fog light switch, and this is a jumper I made. So these two wires go to a rheostat that controls the brightness and the dimness of the dash. I have like 3 or 4 spares, and all of them, they work okay, but they're really finicky. And the dash lights in this are really pretty dim, and I've always, every 900 I've had, they're all the way up. So what I've done is just made a simple jumper that connected into the factory plug, taped it up. So now they're just going to be bright all the time, which is plenty because they're not very bright anyway. So that's done over here. Then on this side, what I have So I've got my radio plug wired in. I've got quite a bit of extra length. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it in a loop when I put the radio in. That way it can, you know, kind of tuck behind there but still have room to work. This is an extra power wire that I need to heat shrink that end of it still, but it's all power all the time. Whenever battery is plugged in, it's powered. It's not used, so I'm just going to leave it in there but keep it shrink wrapped and covered up so it doesn't arc. If I ever add something else, then great. This is another extra dash light wire that I actually have coming down to the bottom here. And that is if I ever, when I rebuild the center console, which there's a whole console that goes here, I may put some gauges in there. So if so, I have a light source, light wire source for that. I've replaced all these little light bulbs in here. You know, the switches and stuff all work the same. There's the antenna. Now, I know that it's a little overwhelming, but I know when you're in it, you know what's what. I've added wiring for this radar detector, which I'm going to feed up through the speaker pod hole here. I'm going to cut a little notch in it, and that way the radar detector can pop up on the dash and work. I have also added wiring up underneath here. Comes over to this plug, which plugs into the back of the dash panel that I showed you earlier. That's for the horn. So if I just jump those two together, the horn will honk. What else did I do? This is the original cigarette lighter, which I'm not using that. I've made an adapter to go to that nice voltmeter / USB lighter. Yeah, so that's all that. I've got speaker wires run up to both front speakers. I ran speaker wires also down the center and to the rear behind the back seat because the original wiring went to a factory amp. I have now bypassed that because it didn't work anyway, so I'm just going to run the speakers off the stereo. I know that's not the most ideal, but it'll work for what this car is. Doesn't need to be a crazy stereo in this one. Yeah, so that's the overview. Here's the microphone plug, which I've put up here for the Bluetooth phone in the head unit. And yeah, the last thing I've done is I've added switch down here, which is going to mount in the center console that I showed you how to cut that earlier. That is going to run on the ignition when I turn the ignition on, so you'll be able to turn the headlights on. Actually, that switch does not run on ignition, it runs on. So parking lights, as you can see, I've got all my dash lights here working again. I think I replaced every single last one of them because they were all broke and burnt out. But anyway, if I turn this switch on, that switch lights up, and I've got some cool red lights under the dash. Now those will be hidden by the lower dash panel. You're not going to see the actual lights themselves, just the cool red glow. I like doing that on all my cars. Really nice on long trips. Not too bright when you're driving, just a nice glow. So yeah, that's what I've got going for now. I'll update more once I get some of this put back together. It's going to take both hands. All right, the radio is in. Let's see what happens. Oh, radar detector works. I hear the antenna going up. Yep, the antenna's up. Connecting. All right. I'll go through this radio and figure out how it works and read through the manual and stuff later. But it fires up, it turns on. Let's see. Oops. Mode. There's only one speaker even in this car right now, and it probably doesn't work. It's not even hooked up. So, but yes, it does work. It does turn on. I will figure out everything else here in a bit. I've got this cool charger that I put in. It's also got a voltmeter in it. So you turn that off and back on. A little worried that's going to be bright when I'm driving, but you know, hey, whatever. And then hang on here. Turn the flashlights and stuff off. I've also got now all the lights that should work in this car light up and work. Everything. So, and I've got the red lights underneath the dash. The switch is in there. I got to put that back together still. And I even replaced the switch in the window switch down in the console. So I'm going to have some of those. Pretty happy with all this. I'm going to go ahead and put the steering wheel back on and move on. Alright, what I have here is the central locking module from the 92 Saab 900. You watched me pull that out in an earlier part of the video. This is been intermittently working lock and unlock features. What I'm going to do is, I've already unclipped it. I pulled just the circuit board out of that box, and as you can see right there, that dark spot right there, that is a bad solder joint. Now I'm hoping that we can touch up the solder joints on this board and put it back together, and my central locking will work like it's supposed to, and that'll be really nice. Alright, so Josh is going to solder this board back together. Alright, I'm in the Saab. The interior project is basically done. As you can see, it's all put back together. Got the stereo in it. Got this little USB charger. Got future gauge pod. The center console and everything is back in. So what's cool now is when I turn the lights on, all the lights that it's supposed to work, they work. Climate control lights, all of it, even down to the ashtray light. Got floor lights in here now, red floor lights. I can turn them on and off with this nice switch. And then I even managed to replace the light bulb in the window switches. Pretty stoked about all of this. Radar detector now. That's hardwired into the car. Comes on with the ignition. Got our stereo with a power antenna that works. That's still amazing to me. Okay, it'll do Bluetooth audio, stereo, USB. There's one speaker in the back corner. It's hanging on for dear life. We're just gonna go ahead and turn that off for now. There is the central locking module, goes up underneath the dashboard there. I had that apart. We resoldered it. We tried a bunch of things. It still isn't working quite right. I've tried doing some pinouts and, you know, checking certain wires and whatnot, looking information I found on the internet, trying to diagnose that. I gave up on it for tonight. The locks are still just manually functioning at this point. The last thing that I did, wiring wise, is when I turned the ignition on, I have this little button next to the stereo. It's the horn. So when I put the early style steering wheel in here, it's a non-airbag steering wheel from an 85. It's a much nicer steering wheel to hold and to deal with, but the horns never worked. So the wires were still there underneath the dash, but there was no horn. So I took the wires, ran them over to here, and we have a horn button now. And then last but not least, just a little Amazon deal. It's got two USB, regular USBs, and it's got a USB-C small one over here. If I can turn that off, you probably see it better. Here we go. It's got two USBs and a small one. I had to trim a little bit, cut a little bit, but it fits and it works. It's got a little power button so I can turn it all on and off. It's great. Everything works. I even replaced this bad switch. It would never let the recirc door close. It was the switch. I replaced that. So besides the central locking, I think we're good to go in here.